Or the Brewpot name for Bruce Almighty, but I'm a little suspicious. And Coder were always on the phone talking and catching up on things, even Max that work at home a lot. And on the phone she's always like saying, Bruce, get out of the garbage. I was looking at my phone saying, is it a video call? How does she know I'm rummaging in the garbage? So, anyway, is Bruce 2 coming tonight? Yeah, a nice reception. Well, that's at the end of my house tonight. You're all welcome to join us for a post-defense celebration and all that tonight. But first, let me give some time for Dr. Lauren Whitehurst, who's been really her real core mentor.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. I mean, I actually would never have been on today if it wasn't for Bruce. So we are all here because Bruce is a fantastic and thoughtful mentor who connects people. And he connected me and Anjana her very first year working in his lab in my first year at the University of Kentucky. So I'll tell you I thought about a million ways to introduce this beautiful being. And I came up with the 2 things that I feel like are so core to her and so core to her journey and why she is standing in front of you right now doing this milestone. And the first thing is Anjana can do really hard things. So when she decides that her professional pursuits will encourage her to leave the culture, the family, the community that she loves so much and travel oceans and continents to come to Kentucky to pursue a degree in entomology, she does it. Right? And then when she gets here and she's like, wait, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, it's not working out, and the relationship that I thought I was going to have, it's not exactly how it should be, and maybe my interests are shifting. She doesn't pack up all her stuff and head back to that community and that family, those people that she loves dearly. She finds another mentor. She works with Bruce. She reaches out. Her intellectual curiosity kind of drives her to ask different questions and to explore different paths. And from that relationship, she and I have become connected. And so let me just make it really clear. So Anjana came here to work in pesticides. And then she was working with insects a bit too. And then she started working with my mouse models of all different types of disease and sleep models and behavior. And then I was like, I'm a human neuroscientist in the Department of Psychology, and I was like, come on, do some human stuff. Now, humans are really messy. I'm not sure if we all know just how messy humans are, but they cancel on you without telling you when you're trying to run a research study. They don't show up. They have feelings and emotions. You have to manage all that, right? And so Anjana, with 0 experience running a human research study, comes to the lab and runs the first human research study that is conducted in my research lab here at University of Kentucky. Her and her co-partner, Gabe Gilmore, launched this project where they were not just doing any type of it was a clinical trial that she's going to talk about today that required so much planning. Technology failed, funding failed, we went back and forth. There was trials, but Anjana can do hard things. And so she stuck that out. And then we kind of got almost done with that first study, and we were looking at the data, and she had to go back and read stuff and try to interpret these findings, and me and her sitting next to each other, and I'm like, I think we should run a second study. And she looks at me and she's like, we should do what? And I'm like, we should run a second study, right? And she's like, yeah, we should run a second study. So she does that. She does another really hard thing. And I think what's really important is that it's not that Anjana does hard things because for some reason she has some magic potion in her back pocket. It's just as hard for her as it is for all the rest of us in this room, and she knows that. So the second thing that really came to mind when I was thinking about what to say about Anjana is that her intellectual humility is bar none. She will ask the hard questions. She will dig apart in the data. She will show up and say, I think I did it wrong. She will show up and say, I'm not quite sure if this is how I should do it. Did I do that right? Am I messing up? What's going on? And that, paired with her perseverance, got her here in front of you all today at this amazing moment. And I'm so honored to stand next to her and alongside her as she embarks upon this next endeavor, defending this work that she's spent the last 5 to 6 years on with her blood, sweat, and many tears, working on. And I'm just so honored to be and witness this moment with her and beside her. And I'm so excited for you all to hear what she has to share with you. And hopefully you guys get some questions. And yeah, without further ado, let's welcome Anjana Subramanian.
Thank you, Bruce and Lauren, for being here. And what a great introduction I felt. felt I left my body during this whole time. And thank you all for showing up, and thank you for my friends and family in Zoom for actually being there from all over the world. I would like to begin by thanking my family. Amandappa, you're my rock, my foundation, my stability. You have stood by me every day throughout this program, supporting me through highs and lows. And I know it is never easy for you to see me move away across countries, but you reminded me the value of education and also reminded me to be a better human above everything. I'm here because of you, and I miss you the most today, and this presentation is happening. With that, I'll be sharing the work what I did in the past 5 years on the impact of autonomic nervous system modulation on sleep architecture and cardiovascular dynamics. Here is an overview of today's talk, the background, methods and results, conclusion, and credits. First, we'll go to the background. The study of sleep goes back to thousands of years. Aristotle mentioned sleep as a cooling of blood, while Descartes mentioned the first time linked sleep to brain activity. Real breakthroughs came in 20th century when Hans Berger initially discovered or invented electroencephalogram or EEG, which help us to measure brain activities during sleep. Yet despite centuries of sleep research, sleep disorders are widespread and is on the rise. 50 to 70 million in the US live with a sleep disorder, and 1 in 3 US adults sleep for less than 7 hours per night. And Kentucky ranks near the bottom nationwide, ranking for 46 out of 15 states. Along with these health problems, insufficient sleep also costs the US economy a lot of money, around 400 billion, which is projected to reach around 450 billion by 2030. Therefore, it's important to understand the science of sleep, which is foundational to tackle our real-life sleep issues. Sleep is not a uniform process. It's a very complicated process. There are 2 main stages, non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. Non-REM sleep is divided into 3 main stages. N1, which is the lightest sleep, a translational stage between wake and sleep. Then the majority of night is made up by N2, and N3, which is the deepest and most restorative part of the sleep. After cycling through non-REM, we enter REM sleep, where dreaming is mostly vivid. These stages repeat in ultradian cycles, lasting about 90 to 120 minutes. When we zoom out over the entire night, we see that sleep follows a repeating cycle of non-REM and REM sleep, each lasting for about 90 minutes. So this is a sleep graph or a hypnogram, and as you can see, N3, which is shown in blue, dominates in the earlier part of the night, and as we progress towards the later part of the night, it reduces. And we see this beautiful pattern, but in an opposite way in REM sleep. REM sleep is highly reduced in the earlier part of the night, but as the night progresses, we see more REM dominant phase. This shifting balance is really important because brain and body are doing different things at different times of the night. To capture these sleep stages, we measure brain activity using EEG, and each stage of sleep has a distinct oscillatory profile. N1 is characterized by 4 to 8 Hz theta waves. N2 is characterized by 12 to 16 Hz, 0.5 to 2 second sleep spindles. N3 by 1 to 4 Hz delta waves. And REM sleep, where EEG looks mostly like wake, but is characterized by low amplitude mixed theta and alpha rhythms. Along with these oscillatory profiles, sleep is also defined by distinct neuromodulatory profiles. 2 of the key players are acetylcholine, which is released from basal forebrain, shown in green, and norepinephrine released from locus coeruleus in blue. In N1 and N2, both acetylcholine and norepinephrine are moderately active. In deep N3, both of them are at their lowest levels, reflecting a highly synchronized restorative nature of slow wave sleep. In contrast, REM sleep, acetylcholine rises sharply, while norepinephrine is nearly silent. Most research has been focused on what is happening in the brain with sleep in particular. However, recent work has highlighted the parallel autonomic changes that occur across the night. Autonomic nervous system have two main branches: the sympathetic nervous system, which is focused on arousal and mobilization of resources, and parasympathetic system, which is important for rest and rejuvenation. During sleep, there is an overall increase in parasympathetic activity, specifically in non-REM sleep, and you see the sympathetic surges during REM sleep. Because of this dominance of parasympathetic activity, sleep is also called as a cardiovascular holiday. So how do we measure the autonomic activity? We use electrocardiogram or ECG, which records beat-to-beat changes in heart rate. This variability in heart rate is called as heart rate variability, which is widespread, and all of us have heard of that. In this picture, each sharp peak represents a heartbeat, and the intervals between these peaks vary slightly. For example, here you see 0.85 seconds, and then you see 0.79. These fluctuations are not noise, these are dynamic autonomic modulation of the heart. So what we do is, we take these RR intervals, apply a fast Fourier transform to examine the variability in each frequency domain. There are three main autonomic indices that I will be talking today. First one is HF-HRV, or high frequency heart rate variability, which reflects vagal parasympathetic activity. Low frequency heart rate variability, which is more complex. It includes both sympathetic and parasympathetic activity, and also a little bit of baroreflex indication. And in the time domain, we have RMSSD, which is again highly correlated to parasympathetic activity. So what is happening during sleep? In sleep, we see this complementary autonomic fluctuations with each sleep stage. In this graph, the y-axis is HF, or heart rate variability, which is an indicator of parasympathetic activity. In this graph here, you can see parasympathetic activity is highest during M3, and then it slowly reduces during REM sleep. It is because of this intermittent sympathetic surges during REM sleep, which manifests as this reduction in parasympathetic activity during REM sleep. Importantly, most of what we know about these patterns are from correlational studies. We lack causal manipulations of autonomic inputs to test how directly altering autonomic activity would change sleep by itself. That brings to the key question driving my dissertation. Is it possible to actively shape sleep architecture and cardiovascular dynamics by directly modulating autonomic afferents during sleep? One way to target autonomic afferent is through vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is 10th cranial nerve, and it is also called as wandering nerve. And it is the major parasympathetic outflow to the body. It originates in the brainstem, as you can see here, and converges back to the brainstem. And it has projections to heart, lungs, digestive area, and one important thing about vagus nerve is 80% of its fibers are afferent. That means they carry information from the body to the brain, which makes vagus nerve a crucial entry point for manipulating central activity and to answer our question. Now that we know what vagus nerve is, next question is, how is it possible for vagus nerve to influence the brain? So during wake, vagal afferents synapse to nucleus solitarius terminalis in the medulla. From here, projections activate the locus coeruleus, and locus coeruleus is the major source of norepinephrine hub. And when norepinephrine is engaged, when locus coeruleus is engaged, norepinephrine is released throughout and broadly in the brain, including cortex, amygdala, hippocampus. And it is this locus coeruleus norepinephrine pathway. It is very helpful for learning, arousal, and attention. So in wake, it is kind of understood and studied more, but during sleep, it's much more tricky. Sleep is regulated by a dynamic push-pull between arousal promoting and sleep promoting network. The VLPO releases GABA and ghrelin during sleep, which inhibits the locus coeruleus activity, and that is really important to maintain non-REM sleep. At the same time, locus coeruleus norepinephrine firing during non-REM and becomes nearly silent in REM, just like the graph I showed you in the very beginning. So what is still unclear is how vagal afferent input through the HES interacts with these sleep promoting pathways. The current model suggests that vagal stimulation could re-engage the locus coeruleus and trigger norepinephrine release, but in the context of an active VLPO that would either destabilize or reshape sleep stages. And there are a few studies which actually links vagus nerve to sleep. In rodents and cats, vagal nerve stimulation has been shown to promote full sleep cycle, and it has also been shown to increase non-REM sleep and also increase the number of REM episodes. Invasive vagal nerve stimulation has also been shown to increase delta activity and spindle or sigma activity, which are oscillatory hallmarks of non-REM sleep. But all of this evidence comes from invasive vagal nerve stimulation. So that requires surgical procedure, it's clinically burdensome, and it's super expensive. Instead of an invasive surgery, we can actually stimulate vagus nerve non-invasively through the ear. This is called as the transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulation. TVNS applies electrical stimulation in the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, and we can target it by the sympa-conchae area in the ear. It's non-invasive and it's extensively validated in both clinical and research settings. And it has also been shown to modulate locus coeruleus activity and sleep wake cycle. So, TVNS has also shown to affect sleep. There are studies on adults with insomnia. So they applied TVNS on adults with insomnia, and they showed that it reduced their subjective sleepiness and also improved their insomnia symptoms. They were able to sleep better, they felt better in the morning. And they also evaluated in a random sample from community, and they also people felt more sleep quality. They felt that, oh, their sleep is much better. Importantly, majority of these trials were conducted during wakefulness. They were asked to stimulate the vagus nerve probably just before they go to bed or any time during the day. But we know that autonomic nervous system is very different across wake and sleep. During sleep, parasympathetic activity is more dominant during non-REM and more sympathetic surges during REM. So it is really important to see how TVNS during sleep might affect sleep architecture. So there is very limited work directly stimulating vagus nerve during sleep. There are in fact 2 studies, both from the same lab. Both studies were conducted on veterans with PTSD. And what they found was that when they applied TVNS during sleep, it increased non-REM sleep and it reduced REM sleep duration, and it also improved the overall parasympathetic activity. With that, we'll come to the existing gaps in the literature. Most work has been conducted on individuals with pathology like PTSD, insomnia, and it is really important to understand how this system affects in healthy adults from a translational perspective. And there is no considerable, there's considerable variability in the timing of stimulation. It is so random, so it's very difficult to point out and generalize the findings. And most studies were conducted during wake. Finally, no study has actually targeted specific sleep stages, meaning we don't know how would stimulation change sleep architecture if we just apply during a non-REM dominant cycle or a REM dominant cycle. And these are the gaps that our work addresses. The work is structured around 3 main aims. The first aim is to impact vagal afferents during sleep and look at sleep architecture. The second aim would look at cardiovascular dynamics like the ANS outputs like HFHRV, LFHRV. And the last aim is on asking if timing matters, whether stimulating during non-REM and REM dominant cycle will have distinct effects on sleep architecture. With that, we'll go to the methods and research section. Our participants were healthy, between 18 to 65 years of age, BMI less than 35, and we excluded anyone with neurological, psychiatric, or medical illness, as well as individuals with any metallic implants given the electrical stimulation. Now let's go through the overall study protocol. All our participants slept for 2 nights. Each night was served as their own, each person was served as their own control, because one night was sham night and another night was stimulation night. And it was a single blind protocol. That means the experimenter knew whether it was sham or stim, but not the participant. So if people were interested, I actually have a few participants in this room. So they came for, first, if they are interested, they would complete the pre-screening survey, where we would ask them the demographic information, medical and psychiatric history, and sleep-related questions to rule out any disorders. If they are eligible, they would come in for an in-person orientation for 2 hours. Here, we explained the study procedures, obtained informed consent, and familiarized them with the device. They were also trained for at-home monitoring devices. And after they agreed to do the study, they would be doing at-home monitoring of sleep and wake for 1 week before they come in for the lab. And then they would come in for visit 1, where we will hook them up with a 64 electrode EEG and ECG, and stimulation is either either sham or stimulation during this time. They would go back, complete the at-home diaries again, at least for 48 hours, and they would come in for visit 2 again. And during visit 2, they would get the opposite orientation of their stimulation. So this is the device we use. It's a very well validated system. This company is in Europe. This is the stimulator unit, and this electrodes that you see, they are titanium electrodes, and these are the electrodes that can be worn as an earbud. During stimulation nights, this is the simple concha area I was mentioning. So this is where the stimulation is applied during stimulation nights, and on sham, it is applied at the earlobe. This entire unit could be, we could control it using a phone app. Now, during orientation, we also made sure participants are comfortable with the level of stimulation intensity. So we titrated the level of stimulation for each participant. So what we did was we increased the stimulation amplitude starting at 0 and slowly increasing until participants first reported feeling the stimulation. Then we slowly increased it again such that it is okay, but they can still sleep with it. And this was the level that was used throughout the entire study. Now let's see what happens when participants came to the lab. They arrived at the lab at 7 p.m. At this time, they were fitted with electrodes, all the electrodes, which takes like 1.5 hours or 1 hour at least. And they also completed a bunch of cognitive and affective tasks. They were given an opportunity to sleep between 11 to 7 a.m. and during the time where polysomnography was being recorded. They woke up, they completed the same tasks again the next day and left the lab around 8:30. Now let's zoom in this particular area of the night. Lights out is at 11, lights on is at 7. Just for analysis purposes, we divided the night into 4 quartiles. Each are 2-hour intervals. Quartile 1 is 11 to 1, then 2, 3, and 4. And throughout this entire process, polysomnography was being recorded. And if you remember, our main 2 questions was to stimulate either during non-REM dominant cycle and REM dominant cycle. So what I'm telling now is the stimulation protocol for a non-REM dominant cycle. So here we started the stimulation after we detected our N2 sleep, and then continued the stimulation for 90 minutes just to cover the whole sleep cycle. And then for study 2, stimulation was applied during the first, while study 1, where stimulation was applied during the first sleep cycle. In study 2, we wanted to focus more on REM dominant cycle. So we started the stimulation at 3:30, where REM is mostly dominant. While study 1 let us understand 2 main things. First of all, is non-REM, stimulating during non-REM changes sleep architecture acutely, but also are there effects that persist throughout the night. So that was something study 1 let us understand, whereas comparing it with study 2 directly helped us to compare the effects of stimulation across different sleep cycles. Now let's go into our results. Our first aim was again looking at sleep architecture. So our dependent variables were all the sleep stages, and specifically for sleep microarchitecture, we focused on sleep spindles. We hypothesized that TVNS increased non-REM sleep and would decrease REM sleep, and it would also show an increase in sleep spindles based on previous results. Again, here we are using study 1. This is the demographic characteristics of our participants. A total of 51 participants enrolled and completed at least one night of the protocol. The mean age was around 23, and we had almost a similar number of males and females, and more diverse ethnic background participants than so many papers we see. So, so we are very happy about that. So first, we looked at the sleep stage architecture across the whole night. Did TVNS change all these sleep stages across the entire night? So here, the y-axis is sleep in minutes, x-axis is the condition, sham is in gray, stim is in this peach color, and N1, N2, N3, and REM. So unlike what we hypothesized, we did not see a difference in the overall sleep architecture. But then when we looked at sex-specific differences, we saw an increase in N2 sleep only in males. So here, y-axis is N2%, x-axis is the condition. This is the male panel, and this is the females. And as you can see, in stimulation, males showed 5% more of N2 sleep compared to females. And this suggests that impact of TVNS on N2 sleep may be sex specific. It is not as easy as we think. It is much more nuanced, and males are much more, I would say, males show greater sensitivity at the level of sleep stage duration. Then we divided the nights into different quartiles and looked if there is any difference in durations across different quartiles. So here, the y-axis are the quartile 1, 2, 3, and 4. X-axis are the minutes, and this is sham, and this is stimulation. I would like to appreciate how beautiful is this N3 sleep producing from this quartile 1 to quartile 4, and this beautiful opposite pattern of REM sleep, where it is smallest in quartile 1 and then it's highest in REM sleep. But it did not unfortunately answer our question. We did not see this significance across quartiles. But then we saw a sex-based effect. Here we examined, so what we saw was males showed a REM suppression, but it was not immediate. It was in quartile 4. This was surprising in a way because we did expect, yes, REM to be suppressed, but we didn't expect we expected REM to be suppressed, but we didn't expect this delayed response of suppression, and also this suppression only in males. So this just shows that TVNS effects on sleep architecture is much more nuanced, and it's mainly sex specific. So this is what we saw from the macro architecture, that is the sleep stage durations. But then we wanted to focus, how is it affecting sleep spindles? As expected, we did see an increase in sleep spindles count on stimulation nights, which we were like so excited. I texted Laura, I'm like, Lord, we saw an improvement in sleep spindles. People in sleep fit would go like wild. So here, what we saw, so here the y-axis is spindle count, the number of spindles. X-axis is sham and stim, sham in gray, stimulation in red. So we were surprised about one thing. Again, stimulation spindles were increased during active nights, but the timing was tricky. If you look at the sham nights, you see more number of spindles are in the first half of the night, and then less spindles in the second half of the night. That is how a normal night of sleep is in a healthy level. But then, on active nights, this pattern flipped. We see this significant increase in spindles only in the second half of the night. So again, just like what we saw with REM sleep, we say this delayed response where the stimulation is early during the non-REM phase, but the effect is mainly during the quarter or the later part of the night. Then we also looked at spindle density, which is the number of spindles per minute, and we saw the same pattern. More spindles in the second half of the night, only in active nights and not in sham. So, coming to the implications, even though we hypothesized